Listen to me. Faith ain't just a word. It's not a feeling. Faith is the fuel that keeps you moving when everything in your life says stop. When you're broke, tired, lost, rejected. Faith is what keeps you from quitting. You don't need to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step, baby. Some of you out here waiting for a sign. The sign is you woke up today. You breathing, you got another shot. That's faith in action. You can't just talk it. You got walk it, even when you're scared. You think success comes from talent? No, it comes from faith in the dark, believing in your vision even when nobody else does. When I was homeless, when I was eating out of trash can, you think I made it out because I had a plan? No, I have faith. I believe God didn't bring me this far to leave me. But hear me, faith without work is dead. Don't tell me you believe and then sleep till noon. If you have faith, you get up, you grind, and you go even when it hurts. Because faith says, I don't care what it looks like, I know what it's gonna be. Faith is movement without evidence. That's the core of it. That's where real belief begins. When you can't see the outcome, when there's no guarantee, no validation, no applause, and no confirmation. That's where true faith steps in. Most people think faith is about waiting for a sign, some undeniable clue, some divine whisper that says, but the truth is, real faith doesn't operate in certainty. It operates in the unknown. It doesn't need a spotlight or a perfect condition to move. Faith moves when everything says, stay still. There's a difference between having a dream and moving toward that dream. Anybody can dream. Everybody has dreams, ideas, hopes, goals. What separates those who talk from those who walk is faith. The kind of faith that doesn't demand evidence. The kind of faith that says, I may not see it yet, but I believe it's possible. That's the faith that changes lives. That's the faith that turns impossible into reality. That's the faith that allowed a man to build an ark before rain ever existed. That's the kind of faith that starts businesses from scratch, moves families out of poverty, and keeps broken hearts still beating. People love security. People love security. They love certainty. They love knowing what's next. But faith doesn't offer that. Faith offers a test of whether you can keep walking when the path is foggy, whether you can show up with consistency even when nobody's watching, whether you can believe in yourself when your surroundings tell you not to. If you're waiting for all the lights to turn green before you drive, you'll never leave the house. You gotta move on red. You gotta start the car and trust that the lights will turn as you move forward. You don't need more clarity, you need more courage. You don't need proof. You need persistence. Faith is about moving before it makes sense. That's how doors open. That's how progress begins. You take a step, not because you know how the story ends, but because you know it's worth starting. There were so many times in my life when I had nothing but faith. No money, no resources, no backing, just a vision, a belief that something greater was ahead. When I was homeless, I didn't have a 5-year plan. I didn't have sponsors or followers. What I had was faith that every rejection, every pain, every night I slept in abandoned buildings was going to be part of a bigger purpose. That my story didn't end in the struggle. That if I kept moving, God would meet me where I was. And guess what? He did. But he didn't move until I moved. That's the part most people miss. You want God to show you the outcome before you take action. But God wants to see your commitment before he shows you the breakthrough. He's asking, will you move even when you can't see me? You say you believe, but will you still work when there's no reward yet? Will you still wake up early, show up on time, give 100% and grind? Not because someone's watching, but because you believe it's worth it. Faith isn't some soft, gentle word. It's gritty, it's raw, it's real. Faith means choosing to stand tall when fear tells you to sit down. Faith means investing time, effort, and heart into a mission that hasn't paid you yet. Faith means sacrificing what's comfortable for what's purposeful. Faith means waking up every day and saying, I'm going to be who I was called to be, even when the mirror shows you a version of yourself that looks broken, tired, and unqualified. It's easy to move when you got support. Easy to move when everyone's cheering for you. But what about when no one claps? What about when the crowd disappears and the lights go out? Will you still move? Because that's when faith gets tested. Not in public, but in private. When it's just you and your doubts, you and your fears, you and your insecurities, will you still move then? That's real faith, movement without evidence. Think about the people who made history. Think about those who changed the world. They didn't wait for validation. They created it. They believed when everyone called them crazy. They worked when everyone said it wouldn't work. Because their faith didn't need a sign. It needed a mission. It needed a vision. They didn't care if it looked impossible. They trusted it was worth it. When you move in faith, you stop needing permission. You stop begging people to believe in you. You stop waiting for the world to approve your journey. You move because something deep inside you knows that staying where you are is not an option. That staying stuck, staying silent, staying small, that's the real failure. You got something inside of you that the world needs, but the only way they'll see it is if you move. Faith is not the absence of fear. It's the refusal to be paralyzed by it. It doesn't mean you won't have doubts. Well, it doesn't mean you won't question. It doesn't mean the road won't be hard. What it means is you don't stop. You keep going. You keep pushing. You keep showing up because you're not walking by sight. You're walking by something deeper, something unshakable, something unbreakable, something called faith. And when you live like that, when you move in faith, you start to unlock doors that fear would have kept shut. You start to realize that most limitations were never real. They were just imagined. That most barriers weren't physical. They were mental. And once you move in faith, you tear them down. You build a new path. You show others that movement doesn't require proof. It requires belief. So wherever you are right now, I need you to move. I don't care how messy it is. I don't care if you don't have it all together. Move, start, begin. You don't have to finish today, but you do have to begin. Because faith doesn't wait. Faith doesn't pause. Faith doesn't need perfect condition. Faith is movement. Faith is motion. Faith is action. Even in the dark, especially in the dark. Move even when you're scared. Move even when you're doubting. Move even when they tell you not to. Because on the other side of that movement is the life you were meant to live. The purpose you were born to fulfill. The person you were created to become. And you'll never see it, never live it, unless you have the courage to move without evidence. That's what faith is. And that's what will set you free. Faith must be backed by action. That's the truth most people overlook. You can talk about belief all day long. You can go around quoting scriptures, repeating affirmations, saying you trust the process. But until your actions match your words, it's just noise. Faith without works is dead. You can say you believe in your dream, but if you're not moving toward it, sacrificing for it, grinding for it, you don't really believe. You just like the idea of believing. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants success. Everybody says they've got faith that things will work out. But the ones who actually walk into their destiny are the ones whose belief is strong enough to drive behavior. It's not about what you say in public. It's what you do in private. It's not about posting quotes on social media. It's about waking up at 5 a.m. to practice when nobody's watching. It's about putting in extra hours, turning off distractions, staying focused, and doing the hard things. Not because they're easy, but because your faith tells you they're necessary. You can't sit on the couch, pray for a miracle, and expect the world to hand you success. That's not faith, that's fantasy. Faith says, I trust that if I put in the work, if I plant the seed, God will bring the harvest. But guess what? There's no harvest without planting. There's no reward without labor. You gotta do your part. You gotta show the universe, show yourself, and show your creator that you're serious about your purpose. And seriousness shows up in effort. You know how I know someone believes in their dream? Not by how loud they talk about it, but by how hard they work for it. You don't have to convince anybody when your actions speak for you, when your grind becomes louder than your excuses, when your consistency outshines your complaints. That's when people start believing in your vision. Not because you said it, but because they saw it. There's something powerful about faith in motion. When you start taking steps, even when you're not sure of the outcome, that movement creates momentum. That momentum opens doors. You start to realize that every small action builds into something greater. Every rep, every early morning, every late night, they compound into excellence. And that consistency shows that your faith isn't just emotional. It's practical. It's real. But let me be clear. The action you take isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it's doing the boring things day after day. Sometimes it's failing and getting back up. Sometimes it's hearing no 100 times before you get a yes. But faith keeps showing up. Faith says, even if today doesn't look like success, I'm going to keep going because I believe tomorrow will. That's what separates the faithful from the wishful, the willingness to work through the hard parts. When I started my journey, I had nothing. I had no audience, no fame, no platform, but I had a vision and I had the faith to put that vision into motion. That meant grinding. That meant showing up when nobody knew my name. That meant speaking for free for 5 people with the same energy I now give to thousands. Why? Because I knew my faith would only take me as far as my actions carried me. I didn't just hope, I worked. I didn't just dream. I executed. People kept asking, how did you do it? And I tell them every time, I believed. And then I backed that belief with hustle. I have faith that my message would change lives, but I didn't wait for the world to discover me. I recorded videos. I studied. I trained. I spoke anywhere I could. I put in the hours. I invested in myself because I understood that faith isn't magic. It's movement. Faith isn't wishing on a star. It's putting in the sweat. There's a reason the greatest achievers in history were also the hardest workers. Their faith in their mission didn't make them lazy. It made them relentless. You think people like Kobe Bryant or Serena Williams just hope they'd be great? No, they believed they had greatness in them, and that belief drove them to outwork everyone. That's the kind of faith that produces results. It doesn't sleep in. It doesn't take shortcuts. It doesn't say, I'll do it tomorrow. It says, if I really believe this matters, I'm going to prove it right now. And let's be real. Faith will be tested. There will be times when you work and don't see the results. It's times when you grind and get overlooked. Times when you invest and nothing comes back. But hear me. Faith doesn't give up when the results are delayed. Faith keeps pushing because it knows the results are coming. You don't go to the gym one time and expect transformation. You go consistently even when you're tired because you believe in what's coming. That's faith. And that's why it has to be backed by action. Too many people want instant results. They want to pray today and get a blessing tomorrow. But real faith understands delay is not denial. Real faith keeps putting in the work, keeps showing up, keeps pouring in the effort, even when a breakthrough is still miles away. That's what faith in action looks like. It's not cute. It's not perfect, but it's real. And real faith always moves forward. The other thing about backing faith with action is that it builds confidence. When you take action, you build trust in yourself. You start proving to yourself that you're capable. Every time you finish a hard task, every time you overcome an obstacle, you reinforce your own belief. That's how momentum grows. That's how confidence multiplies. Because you didn't just say you believed. You lived like you believed. Faith is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And the more action you take, the more your faith becomes unshakable. Because now it's not just theory, it's experience. You've seen what happens when you work. You've seen what happens when you grind. You've seen what happens when you stay consistent. You're not guessing anymore. You know, that's the power of combining faith with action. So stop waiting. Stop hesitating. Stop second guessing your vision. If you truly believe in what you're called to do, your calendar should reflect that belief. Your habits should reflect that belief. Your work ethic should reflect that belief. Don't tell me you have faith. Show me. Let your efforts speak volumes. Let your commitment be the loudest sermon you ever preach. Let your action prove that your faith is alive and well. Because at the end of the day, you won't be judged by what you said you believe. You'll be judged by what you did with what you believe. Did you build? Did you create? Did you serve? Did you push through pain? Did you show up? Did you grind when it was hard? That's what matters. That's what leaves a legacy. Faith is not a passive word. It's a word of movement, of energy, of intention. If you really believe in something, then act like it. If you really believe in yourself, then show the world. If you really believe in your purpose, then put in the work. Let your actions shout what your words only whisper. Let your grind tell the story of your faith. That's how dreams are realized. That's how miracles are born. Let me tell you something. Faith is not just believing when everything is working. Faith is believing when everything's falling apart. Faith is showing up when your energy is gone. Faith is getting up even when you've been knocked down 99 times. You don't need faith on the mountaintop. You need faith in the valley. You say you have faith, but let me ask you something. Do you still grind when there are no results? Do you still wake up at 4 a.m. when nobody claps for you, when nobody sees the effort, when nobody's watching? Because that's where faith lives. See, faith isn't loud. It's a shout. It isn't always the spotlight or the amen from the crowd. Faith is quiet. It's lonely. It's that early morning when your body says a no, but your purpose says yes. It's staying locked in when your environment gives you every excuse to tap out. Everybody's got faith when the sun is shining, when the checks are coming in, when the business is booming, when people are calling your name. That's not real faith. That's comfort. That's convenience. But when you've been grinding for months, years, and there's no applause, no breakthrough, no visible reward, and you still get up, that's faith. That's belief beyond sight. And that kind of faith, that's what changes lives. That's what opens doors. That's what separates the ordinary from the chosen. People talk about faith like it's just a belief, but I'm telling you, faith is work. Faith is motion. Faith is not sitting on your couch waiting for a miracle to fall in your lap. Faith is getting out the door every day like it already happened. It's putting in the effort before the opportunity. It's preparing like the stage is already set, like the audience is already cheering, like the prize already has your name on it. Let me tell you something real. There were nights I cried. Nights I questioned if I was crazy for believing this hard in something I couldn't see. There were moments I looked at my bank account and thought, oh God, are you sure? Because what I see ain't matching what I believe. But that's the test, right? That's where the separation happens. See, anyone can grind when they see the fruit, but what about when the soil looks dead? What about when the dream feels buried, not planted? What about when every yes it turns into a not yet, and every door seems locked? That's where God checks your temperature. That's where your faith is forged. Not in the victory, but in the valley, in the silence, in the struggle. And if you can still move in that space, if you can still grind with a pure heart, if you can still give your best when nobody's watching, then you're dangerous. You're powerful because now your motivation isn't validation. Your fuel isn't attention. Your power doesn't come from people. It comes from purpose. And purpose-driven faith, oh, that's unshakable. I remember waking up some days and looking at my vision board like it was mocking me. Nothing looked like the future I've been praying for. My current situation was screaming a quit, but my spirit whispered a trust. And that whisper, that tiny spark of belief, that's what I clung to. That's what kept me in motion. Because the world will tell you to stop. Your feelings will beg you to stop. But faith says, just one more day. Faith says, keep building. Faith says, I know it's dark, but dawn is coming. Just don't give up before the sun rises. You see the ground with no results? That's sacred ground. That's the training ground. That's the classroom where champions are made. Because if you can hold your integrity there, if you can master your emotions there, if you can stay obedient to the calling there, then you're ready for the blessing. You're ready for the next level. God don't just hand out elevation to everybody. He gives it to the faithful, not the flashy, not the popular, the faithful. So ask yourself, can you grind with no guarantee? Can you give your all without an audience? Can you trust a promise with no timeline? Because that's the measure of faith. That's where true growth happens. And don't get it twisted. Every step you take in the dark, every time you show up without seeing the results, you're building something. You're investing in something eternal. You're proving that your belief is not tied to your circumstances. It's tied to your calling. And let me give you something practical. When you feel discouraged, when it feels like nothing's working, go back to your why. Remind yourself why you started. Speak over yourself. I'm not saying ignore reality. I'm saying speak a greater truth over your reality. Say, I'm chosen. Say, I'm built for this. Say, I don't need to see it to believe it. I believe it, so I'll see it. Look, I've been at rock bottom. I've been laughed at, doubted, overlooked. But you know what kept me from staying down there. Faith, not luck, faith. The belief that my grind wasn't wasted, that my tears were watering something, that my silence was sanctifying me, that my struggle was shaping me. And if I just kept pushing, if I just kept waking up and doing the work, the fruit would come. And now, years later, people People see the fruit, but they didn't see the faith it took to get here. They didn't see the nights I slept in abandoned buildings. They didn't see the days I walked to school just to hear, "Who not smart enough?" But I kept showing up. Because I wasn't working for him. And when you work like it's already done, you attract miracles. You attract favor. You attract doors that no man can shut. You want to be great? Then get used to grinding in the shadows. Get used to being misunderstood. Get used to showing up when you feel nothing. Because that's the secret. Faith don't need feelings to function. Faith ain't a mood. It's a mindset. It's a decision. Every day, even when the bank account low, even when your friends ghost you, even when your body tired, you still move. You still believe. And I need you to know this. You're not crazy for believing in something you can't see yet. That's not insanity. That's legacy. That's purpose. That's vision. Visionaries don't need evidence. They are the evidence. You walk into a room and shift the atmosphere because your spirit says, "I'm already living in what I prayed for." So don't quit. Don't let silence shake your belief. Don't let slow progress trick you into thinking it's not happening. It's happening. God is working behind the scenes. The foundation is being laid. Your character is being refined. Just keep grinding. Keep preparing. Keep showing up like the blessing already has your name on it. Because faith, real faith, is grinding when you see no results and trusting that what's coming is greater than anything you can see right now. Faith is personal before it's public. That's a truth most people miss because we live in a world that's obsessed with visibility. Everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants their dreams to be noticed, their beliefs validated, their talents recognized. But before the world can see it, before anyone else can believe in it, you have to believe in it. Before anyone claps for you, before anyone invests in you, before anyone follows you, you have to see the value in yourself. Faith starts in the dark. Faith starts in silence. Faith starts in solitude. You can't expect the world to co-sign on a vision you haven't even fully committed to. You want other people to bet on you, but you're not even all in on yourself. You want support, but you haven't shown the discipline. You want fans, but you haven't built the foundation. You can't broadcast something you haven't yet built in private. That's why faith has to be personal. It has to be born in the unseen spaces of your heart before it can be revealed to the world. A lot of people are chasing approval. They move not because they're called, but because they're trying to impress. They're performing instead of building. But that's not faith. That's insecurity in disguise. Real faith doesn't start with a microphone. It starts in the mirror. It's what you say to yourself when nobody's watching. It's what you choose when nobody's looking. It's the fire you carry in your chest long before anyone sees the flames. Let me tell you something. You will always go further in life if your belief starts internally. Why? Because there will be seasons when nobody supports you. There will be moments when your circle is silent. There will be times when nobody claps, nobody shares, nobody encourages. And if your faith isn't rooted in something deeper than public praise, you'll quit. You'll fold. You'll stop showing up because the spotlight disappeared. When your faith is personal, you keep going regardless. When you believe in what you're doing, who you're becoming, and why you're here. It doesn't matter if they see it yet. You keep pushing because you already saw it. You already envisioned it. You already lived in your heart. You don't need that validation because you've already gotten confirmation in your spirit. You don't build greatness by asking for permission. You build greatness by making a decision to believe in yourself when nobody else will. Some of the most powerful things ever created started in private. Steve Jobs built Apple in a garage. Oprah got turned down before she ever got her own show. Eric Thomas was homeless before anyone knew his name. What kept him going wasn't public recognition. It was personal faith. It was the decision to say, even if the world doesn't believe in me yet, I believe in me. Faith has to be personal because it's the anchor that holds you when life tries to pull you under. It's the voice that whispers and keep going when everything in your life says, stop. It's the light you carry when everything around you is dark. It's the reminder that your journey has worth, even if your results haven't caught up yet. When I started speaking, nobody was checking for me. I wasn't booked out in arenas. I wasn't making millions. I was grinding, giving everything I had to a dream I knew was real, even when nobody else did. I didn't have applause. I didn't have contracts, but I had faith. I knew my voice mattered. I knew my story had power. I knew my message could change lives. So I didn't wait for the world to tell me I was worthy. I walked like I already was. I moved like it was already done. That's personal faith. And you gotta have that same kind of belief in your life. You gotta wake up every day and say, I may not be where I wanna be, but I'm already enough. I'm already chosen. I'm already valuable. You gotta stop waiting for the world to clap and start clapping for yourself. Start showing up for yourself. Start believing in your gifts. Start trusting your journey. Faith that begins internally will always outlast storms. Because when it gets hard, and trust me, it will, you need something more solid than public opinion. You need a foundation that doesn't crack under pressure. And that foundation is built in the quiet hours. In the unseen moments. In the grind that nobody celebrates, champions are made. And not under lights, but under pressure. Not in crowds, but in solitude. Don't let the absence of an audience make you think you're on the wrong path. Some of your most powerful progress would happen in isolation, when it's just you and your discipline, just you and your decision to keep going. That's when the roots grow deep. That's when the real character's built. That's when your faith becomes unshakable. You're not responsible for how quickly others believe in you. You're responsible for how consistently you show up for yourself. And if you keep showing up, one day the world will catch up. They'll see what you saw all along. But don't wait for that moment to move. Move now. Move with what you have. Move with what you know. Because faith doesn't need applause, it needs action. It needs movement. It needs conviction. There's something sacred about believing in something nobody else sees. That's when you're most aligned with your purpose. When you're not chasing likes or followers or fame, but you're moving because something inside you knows it's right. That's how legacies are built. That's how breakthroughs happen. Through people who had the courage to believe before it was popular, who had the discipline to act before it was rewarded, who had the faith to stay committed before it was celebrated. Let your faith become your standard, not your feelings, not your fears, not your failures. Faith says, even if I fall, I'll rise again. Faith says, even if they doubt me, I won't doubt myself. Faith says, even if it's slow, I'm still moving. Faith doesn't need a crowd. It doesn't need a cussing. It doesn't need confirmation from the outside. It grows from the inside out. If your belief system is built on public support, you're standing on sand. But if your belief system is rooted in personal conviction, in the truth that you were born for something greater, you're standing on solid rock, and nothing can move you from that place. Not storms, not critics, not failure, not fear. Because your faith is personal. Your vision is personal. Your purpose is personal. So don't wait. Don't wait for them to believe. Don't wait for them to understand. Don't wait for the perfect time or perfect circumstances. Believe now. Build now. Start now. Even if it's messy. Even if it's lonely. Even if nobody sees it but you. Especially then. Because the seeds you plant in private will become the fruit you harvest in public. But only if you have the faith to keep planting. You don't need everyone to believe. You just need you to believe. You and your creator. That's enough. That's where faith begins. Not with applause, but with obedience. Not with popularity, but with persistence. Not with comfort, but with commitment. Your faith must be personal because your purpose is personal. And if you trust it, nurture it, and move with it, the public part will take care of itself. Faith is refusing to quit even when you're tired, broke, and discouraged. It's easy to believe when you're energized, when your bank account is full, and your spirit is high. Anybody can be faithful when life is working out, when the sun is shining, when people are clapping, and when you feel supported. But the true test of your faith shows up in the struggle. The real measure of who you are and what you believe is revealed when you're exhausted, empty, and emotionally drained, and yet you still don't quit. There will be seasons in your life when you feel like you have nothing left. You gave your all and it still wasn't enough. You poured yourself into the relationship, into the dream, into the business, and the return doesn't look like the effort. That's when the voice of doubt shows up. That's when quitting starts to look like peace. That's when walking away starts to feel like relief. But right there, in that exact moment, that's where faith is required. Not when it's easy, not when it's working. When it's hard, when you're hurting, when your back is against the wall and there's no applause, no reward, no validation, just you, your belief, and your decision to keep going. You see, faith isn't the absence of pain. It's the strength to move through pain. Faith doesn't make things effortless. It makes things possible. So even when you're broke, when the bills are stacked, when the pressure is heavy, when nothing is going your way, faith whispers, and keep going. Faith says, just one more step. Faith reminds you that your current condition is not your final destination. People don't fail. They fail because they stop believing. They stop believing. They stop showing up. They let temporary feelings make permanent decisions. But the ones who succeed, the ones who rise, the ones who fulfill their calling, they refuse to quit. Not because they were superhuman, not because they had every resource or support system, but because they had faith. Faith that the storm would pass. Faith that their effort would be rewarded. Faith that the breakthrough was just one more push away. There were times I wanted to quit. Times I looked at my life and thought, oh, this isn't working. I was tired of being tired. Broke not just financially, but emotionally. Discouraged because I was grinding every day and still wasn't seeing the fruit. But I realized something. Feelings are temporary, but purpose is eternal. So I chose to stop living based on how I felt and started living based on what I believed. And I believed I was called. I believed I was chosen. I believed there was something greater on the other side of the pain, but I'd never reach it if I gave up. And don't let social media fool you. Everybody looks like they've got it together on the surface, but behind every success story is a chapter where they almost gave up. Faith is trusting the process when the promise is delayed. That's one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do in your journey. It's easy to trust God when the blessings are flowing, when the doors are opening, when the yes comes quickly. But what happens when the promise takes longer than expected? What happens when what you prayed for doesn't show up in your timing? That's when real faith steps in. Because real faith doesn't panic in the delay, it plants itself deeper. There's something about a delay that makes people nervous. We live in a world of instant everything, instant food, instant replies, instant success. So when the process takes time, we start questioning, we start doubting, we start asking, did I really hear God? Is the promise still for me? Did I miss my chance? Still for me. Did I miss my chance? But let me tell you something. Delay is not denial. Just because it's not happening now doesn't mean it's not happening at all. God's promises don't expire, but they do mature. And maturity takes time. Look at nature. You plant a seed and you don't get fruit the next day. That seed has to go through a process. First it's buried in the dark. Then it breaks open. Then roots start forming underground where nobody sees them. Then the stem begins to push through the soil. And even then, it takes time before it bears fruit. But we're impatient. We want to plant the seed today and harvest tomorrow. We want the dream to come alive instantly, but God doesn't work on our clock. He works on his timing, and his timing is perfect, even when it feels painful. You have to learn to trust God, even when the waiting room is silent. You have to learn to believe when you have no updates, no evidence, and no confirmation. You have to trust the process, even when it feels like you're being forgotten, because you're not forgotten, you're being formed. God is shaping you, molding you, developing things inside of you that you'll need when the promise arrives. The process is preparing you for the platform. The delay is building your durability. Sometimes we ask God to elevate us, but we're not ready for that elevation. We haven't developed the character, the discipline, the focus that it takes to carry the weight of what we're asking for. So God says, not yet. Not because he doesn't love you, but because he loves you too much to let the blessing crush. He wants to build you so strong that when the promise comes, you don't fold under the pressure. But that takes process. And that process almost always includes delay. Do you know how many people give up in the delay? Not because the promise wasn't real, not because God didn't speak, but because they couldn't endure the silence. They mistook the delay for rejection. But faith says, even if I don't see it, I believe it's still on the way. Faith says, I'll keep showing up, I'll keep believing, I'll keep working, even when I don't feel anything. Because sometimes the delay is the blessing. Sometimes the delay is divine protection. You're being hidden for a reason. You're being slowed down to avoid a disaster you don't even see coming. You might be in a season right now where everything feels still, like nothing is moving, like your prayers are hitting the ceiling. But I promise you, something is happening. Even when it feels like nothing's changing, something is shifting behind the scenes. God is aligning people. He's opening doors. He's softening hearts. He's arranging things in ways that your eyes haven't seen yet. You just have to stay faithful, stay consistent, stay rooted. When you're in the middle of the process, the enemy will try to whisper lies. He'll say, it's never gonna happen. You're wasting your time. Look how long it's been. But you gotta counter every lie with truth. The truth is, God is not a man that he should lie. If he said it, he'll do it. The truth is, he who began a good work in you will carry it out to completion. The truth is, those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. That's not just feel-good talk. That's the foundation of faith. Some of you are discouraged right now because you thought it would have happened by now. You thought the business would be further along. You thought the relationship would be restored. You thought the breakthrough would have come. But can I tell you this? Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not in motion. Delay teaches you to depend. Delay deepens your trust. Delay kills your ego so your spirit can rise. Think about Abraham. God promised him a son, but it didn't happen for years. He had to walk by faith every day without seeing any progress. He had to watch time pass, watch others get blessed, watch his body age, and still believe. That's the kind of faith that pleases God. The kind of faith that doesn't flinch in the face of delay. The kind of faith that says, I don't need to see it to know it's coming. That's the kind of faith you need to cultivate. The kind that risks, not stresses. The kind that keeps working the vision even when nothing looks different. Because here's what I've learned. How you wait matters. If you wait bitter, you're not ready. If you wait complaining, you're not growing. But if you can wait with expectation, with gratitude, with obedience, that's how you show God you're prepared for the promise. You got to ask yourself, can I still be faithful even when it feels like I've been forgotten? And you still sow, still serve, still speak life into others when your own life feels dry. That's the real test. God isn't just watching what you do when the door opens. He's watching what you do when the door stays shut. He's watching how you treat people in the hallway. Are you still praising? Are you still praying? Are you still pursuing purpose? The danger of delay is that it can convince you that your story is over. But delay doesn't mean the story is finished. It just means the next chapter is still being written. Don't try to rush the author. Don't snatch the pen out of his hands. Let him write it. Let him finish it. And while you wait, build yourself. Build your faith. Build your focus. I know the delay hurts. I know it's frustrating. I know it feels like you're stuck. But what if I told you this delay is the very thing protecting your promise? What if I told you that God is doing more in the waiting than he ever could in the rushing? What if I told you that your growth during the delay is more important than the gift itself? Don't waste the delay. Use it. Use it to become stronger, wiser, deeper. Use it to refine your character, your commitment, your clarity. Use it to prepare for the thing you're praying for. Because when the promise comes, and it will come, you'll want to be ready. Not just ready to receive it, but ready to sustain it. Faith is trusting that God's a not yet still means a yeah. Faith is believing that even in the silence, he's speaking. Even in the stillness, he's moving. Even in the waiting, he's working. So hold on. Keep pressing. Keep showing up. Keep trusting the process, because delay is not the end. It's just the space where God is getting everything in place for the promise to show up right on time. Faith is not just a feeling, a wish, or a passive hope. It's a decision, a choice to believe even when everything around you suggests otherwise. Faith is the quiet courage to keep walking when there's no visible path, the strength to keep climbing when the mountain looks impossible to scale. Too many people today want faith to feel good. They want it to be easy, to come with clear signs, instant results, and constant affirmation. But the truth is, real faith is forged in fire. It's proven not when things are going well, but when everything is falling apart and you still refuse to give up. We live in a world that is obsessed with guarantees. We want confirmation before commitment. We want results before sacrifice. But that's not how faith works. Faith is not built on evidence. It creates the evidence. You don't wait to believe after the breakthrough. You believe before it happens, and your belief opens the door for that breakthrough. Think about that. It's not about seeing to believe. It's about believing to see. That's why faith can feel so unnatural in today's culture. We want to control everything, plan everything, calculate every step. Faith, however, requires surrender. It demands that you let go of control and still move forward. Faith is about trusting the process even when the plan is unclear. It's about believing that there's purpose in your pain, that there's a lesson in your loss, that there's meaning in the myth. When you face setbacks, when the doors are slammed in your face, when the people you depended on walk away, that's not the end. That's the moment your faith is being tested, stretched, and strengthened. You might not realize it in that moment, but those tests are preparing you for a testimony. They're building something inside you that comfort never could. Let's be real. Faith doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes it's heavy. Sometimes it's downright terrifying, but that doesn't mean it's not working. It means you're in the zone where growth happens. Faith is like a muscle. You can't strengthen it by reading about it or talking about it. You strengthen it by using it, by lifting the weight of uncertainty, by running the race of endurance, by pushing through the pain of delay. Every single time you choose faith over fear, you get stronger. Every single time you take a step without knowing the outcome, you grow more resilient. Some of the greatest moments in life begin in darkness. They begin with a step that made no sense. Abraham left everything he knew to go to a land he'd never seen. Noah built a boat before the first drop of rain. David stepped up to Goliath with nothing but a sling and belief. Their faith wasn't built on what they could see. It was built on what they knew inside, what they believed even when it defied logic. That's what real faith looks like. It's not always polished or pretty, but it's powerful. Faith also means patience. We don't like that word because we want things now. But faith doesn't operate on a timeline. It moves on divine timing. And here's the truth. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. Delay is not denial. Sometimes the wait is the preparation. Sometimes the struggle is shaping your character. Sometimes the silence where your strength is being cultivated. You think nothing is happening, but something deep is taking place inside you. That's faith, trusting even in the waiting. And you can't source this. Nobody can have faith for you. Your mama can pray for you. Your pastor can encourage you. Your friends can support you. But at the end of the day, you have to believe. You have to make the choice to keep showing up, to keep pushing, to keep trusting. Faith is personal. It's your responsibility to feed it, to nurture it, to act on it. And if you don't act, it dies. Faith without works is dead. So if you say you believe, but you're not moving, not trying, not risking, then it's not really faith. It's just talk. Faith also brings clarity, not always in the way you expect, but in the way you need. When you live by faith, your vision changes. You start to see beyond the surface, beyond the struggle. You stop reacting and start responding with purpose. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what can I learn from this? That shift is powerful because it moves you from being a victim to becoming a victor. Faith allows you to reinterpret your reality. You no longer see failure as final, you see it as feedback. You no longer see rejection as the end, you see it as redirection. And when you live by faith, you walk different, you talk different. You carry yourself with a quiet confidence, not because you have all the answers, but because you know the one who does. You're not shaken by every storm because your foundation is deeper. You're not driven by fear because your faith is louder. You don't quit when it gets hard because you've already decided that quitting is not an option. That's the power of faith. It gives you focus, it gives you fortitude, and gives you fire. Now let's talk about fear for a second, because fear and faith cannot coexist. One will always choke out the other. Faith is the antidote to fear. But fear will always try to creep in through doubt, through delay, through disappointment. Your job is to shut the door on fear every single day. Speak life when fear whispers death. Declare truth when fear lies. Move forward when fear paralyzes. And the best way to conquer fear is to take action. Faith is not passive. It's not sitting around hoping. It's moving even when you're scared. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move through it. Faith fuels that courage. And sometimes faith will require you to stand alone. Everyone won't understand your vision. Everyone won't support your dream. Everyone won't applaud your choices. But you've got to be okay with that. You're not doing it for them. You're doing it because you've been called, because you believe, because you've seen something they haven't. And one day they'll see the results. They'll see the fruit of what you're planting in silence. what you water with tears, what you nurture with perseverance. But until then, keep believing. So let me ask you this. What are you believing for? What dream have you buried because it seemed too big, too far, too hard? What promise have you walked away from because it didn't happen on your timeline? It's time to pick it back up. It's time to believe again. Faith isn't about never doubting. It's about choosing to keep going even when doubt knocks on your door. Faith is the power to begin again, to rise again, to trust again. It's the fire in your soul that refuses to go out, no matter how dark it gets. You have that fire inside you. Don't let life extinguish it. Don't let fear smother it. Don't let failure bury it. Feed it, fuel it, fan the flame. Every step of faith you take is a step toward your destiny. Every moment you choose belief over doubt, you are creating momentum. And one day you'll look back and realize it wasn't luck, it wasn't chance, it was your faith that carried you through. Faith is not simply an emotion or a fleeting thought. It is a decision, a lifestyle, and a daily commitment. When we say a walk by faith, not by sight, we are talking about moving through life, making decisions, standing firm in storms, and pushing forward even when there's no visible proof that the outcome will work in our favor. No work in our favor. This kind of faith is not blind. It is deeply rooted in trust, experience, and a greater vision that goes beyond what the eyes can perceive. Too many of us allow what we see or what we don't see to determine how we move. But when we operate by faith, we understand that sight can be deceiving, temporary, and often misleading. Faith is the ability to trust in the process, believe in the promise, and commit to the purpose, even when we're surrounded by uncertainty. Walking by sight can paralyze progress. You see a closed door and you stop trying. You see an empty bank account and you give up on your dream. You see a failed attempt and you convince yourself that you're not good enough. But faith pushes past all that. Faith said, even if the door is closed, I believe another will open. Even if my resources are lacking, I know provision will come. Even if I fail today, I'm still worthy of success tomorrow. Walking by faith is about knowing in your heart that what's ahead is bigger than what's behind, even if you can't yet see it with your natural eyes. It means trusting in what you've heard from God, from your spirit, and from your purpose more than what your environment is telling you. This kind of faith is developed in adversity. It is easy to talk about faith when everything is going well. When the bills are paid, the relationships are healthy, and your body feels strong. It's easy to believe everything will be okay. But real faith is tested in the fire. It's when you lose your job and still declare that you are not defined by your paycheck. It's when you are overlooked and yet you still believe that your value is not diminished. It's when your dream seems delayed, but you refuse to call it denied. That's faith. It's grit, it's courage, and it's vision, all wrapped in spiritual determination. Faith is saying, I don't see the finish line, but I'm still going to run like I'm close. When you walk by faith and not by sight, you also learn to block out the noise. Sight will show you statistics, opinions, and trends. Sight will flash warning signs and tell you it's impossible. But faith silences the noise and sharpens your focus. It keeps you anchored in truth and not trends. It tells you that you were built for more and that your circumstances are not your ceiling. It reminds you that everything great that was ever built started with belief, often in spite of evidence to the contrary. Faith fuels innovation, growth, and resilience. Think about all the people in history who had to walk by faith. Entrepreneurs who started with nothing but a dream. Artists who created masterpieces without a dollar in their pocket. Leaders who stood alone before anyone followed. They all had one thing in common. They saw something that others couldn't. And that vision, that belief was their foundation. They didn't wait for perfect conditions. They created them through faith-driven action. That's how we must live. Don't wait for sight to give you permission. Let faith give you power. Walking by faith doesn't mean being naive or ignoring reality. It means seeing reality and choosing to respond differently. It means seeing a problem and believing in a solution. Seeing pain and believing in healing. Seeing lack and believing in abundance. It's not denying the facts. It's refusing to be defined by them. You can acknowledge your situation and still move forward with faith. You can be broke and still build. You can be heartbroken and still love. You can be exhausted and still rise. That's what faith empowers you to do. It's a mindset and a posture that says, what I see might look one way, but what I believe is something greater. The enemy of faith is fear, and fear is almost always based on what we see. We fear rejection, so we don't ask. We fear failure, so we don't try. We fear the unknown, so we don't move. But faith challenges fear. It said, I'm not walking based on what I fear. I'm walking based on what I know is possible. Faith is a weapon. It's a shield. It's a compass. It guides you and gives you grit to keep pressing. And every time you choose faith over fear, you grow. You get stronger. You expand your capacity for the impossible. This isn't just about spirituality. It's about your life, your career, your dreams, your health, your relationships. They all require faith. At some point, you have to act before you see the results. You have to show up before the applause. You have to believe in yourself before the world does. That's what separates those who make it from those who quit. Not talent, not money, not resources, faith. The ability to move without full clarity, the willingness to believe in a better future, even if the present feels broken. That's how legends are made. That's how miracles happen. Not by sight, but by faith. And here's the truth. There will be times when walking by faith feels lonely. Not everyone will see what you see. Not everyone will understand your vision. Some people will think you're crazy. Some will doubt you. Some will leave you. But your job isn't to convince them. Your job is to keep walking. Your faith will speak for itself. Eventually, what was once invisible will become undeniable. What you once believed in the dark will shine in the light. And the people who once doubted you will have no choice but to acknowledge your journey. That's the reward of faith. Manifestation. Faith is also contagious. When people see you walking by faith, boldly, consistently, fearlessly, they are inspired. You become a light in a world of fear. Your life becomes a testimony that helps others believe again. Every step you take by faith gives someone else permission to do the same. That's power. You don't just impact your own life, you become a catalyst for others. So don't ever underestimate what your faith can do. It can shift atmospheres. It can change generations. It can break chains. It can open doors, not just for you, but for everyone connected to you. So today, the challenge is simple but powerful. Stop letting your eyes limit your destiny. Stop letting circumstances control your confidence. Stop waiting for evidence to make a move. Start walking by faith. Start showing up with belief, even when there's no applause. Start acting like it's already done, because in the realm of faith, it is. Faith doesn't guarantee ease, but it guarantees growth. It doesn't promise comfort, but it promises strength. And most importantly, it doesn't require perfection. It just requires commitment. Keep walking, keep believing, keep pushing. You're not walking alone. You're walking with purpose. You're walking with vision. You're walking by faith. Faith is not passive. It's a powerful, relentless force that gives you the courage to take action, even when everything around you says, stop. It's not about simply believing and sitting still. It's about stepping forward when the path isn't clear, when the money's not there, when the people who said they support you walked away, and when your emotions scream, give up. Faith is moving your feet when fear tells you to freeze. Faith is making that phone call, sending that email, showing up to practice, even when you're tired, even when you've been rejected before. Faith is tied to motion. It's about acting, pushing, climbing, and moving, even when the destination isn't visible yet. You don't have to see the entire staircase to take the first step. Too many people wait for clarity before they act. But the truth is, clarity often comes after obedience. You don't get the answers by standing still. You get them by going forward. That dream you have, that business idea, that goal to graduate, to rebuild your family, to change your community, it won't happen just because you believe in it. It happens because you move toward it. Faith without works is dead. You can't just wish for it, pray about it, talk about it. You have to move. You have to do your part. You have to show up even when you don't feel like it. There will always be excuses, real ones, good ones. There will always be obstacles that seem bigger than your resources. But faith isn't about resources, it's about your response. You may not have what it takes yet, but faith says, I'll show up anyway, I'll prepare anyway, I'll try again anyway. People say, I'll start when I feel ready. You'll never feel fully ready. Faith doesn't wait for the perfect time. It creates the time. It seizes the moment. You don't wait for everything to align. You move and trust that the pieces will fall into place as you go. Look at every champion, every leader, every world changer. They didn't get there by sitting and hoping. They moved, they got up early, they stayed up late, they failed and still pressed forward. That's faith in motion. That's belief turned into behavior. And here's the secret. Every time you move forward in faith, even when you're scared, your confidence grows. Your discipline grows. Your resilience grows. The more you move, the more momentum you build. Movement fuels belief. When you see yourself showing up even in doubt, even in pain, you start to trust yourself more. You prove to yourself that you're serious. And that power compounds. There's a battle between your faith and your fear every single day. Fear says, you can't. Faith says, I will. Fear says, not enough time, not enough money, not enough talent. A faith says, what I have is enough to start. Every time you choose movement over paralysis, you choose faith. Every time you make progress, when it would be easier to stay in bed or hide from the world, you're exercising your faith muscle. And just like physical muscles, the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. The more you act in faith, the more your life starts to shift. People ask, how do I get stronger in my faith? Move, act, go, start where you are. Do what you have. Do what you can. You won't always know the outcome. It might not work the first time, but it will never work if you don't move. Faith is not about the guarantee, it's about the grind. It's about showing up and trusting the process. You might fail, but faith says failure is just feedback. You might stumble, but faith says that's part of the start of the story. Don't let the fear of falling keep you from flying. Don't let the uncertainty of tomorrow stop you from giving your all today. Even when it doesn't feel like emotion is progress. Some days it will feel like you're running in place. Some days it will feel like nothing is changing. But faith says, keep going. Faith says, the breakthrough is coming. You can't stop 3 feet from goal. You can't give up just because it's hard. Everything worth having requires effort. And effort, consistent effort, is powered by faith. Keep making moves. Keep showing up. Keep investing in yourself, in your dream, in your purpose. Let the world see your faith, not just in what you say, but in what you do. Let your actions be your testimony. Let your work speak. Let your habits preach louder than your words. People may doubt your dream, but they can't ignore your discipline. They can't deny your consistency. That's how you silence the critics. That's how you drown out the doubt. By taking action, by putting in the reps, by doing what others are unwilling to do. There are people waiting on the other side of your obedience. Your movement in faith doesn't just change your life. It unlocks doors for others. Your courage inspires courage. Your motion gives others permission to move. Your obedience in taking action can break generational curses. It can birth legacies. Your faith in action becomes the blueprint for others to follow. Don't underestimate what God can do with your simple step of faith. It doesn't have to be flash. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. It just has to be consistent. So what are you waiting for? The time will never be perfect. You will never feel fully ready. But faith isn't about waiting. It's about waiting. One step, then another, day after day, moment by moment. That's how mountains are moved. That's how dreams become real. That's how history is made, through relentless, disciplined motion fueled by unwavering faith. You got this. Move.